The next tab that we have is very straightforward, at least the basics of it, but I'll get more into the nuts and bolts later when you understand how you can truly utilize the full potential of this broadcast tab using user attributes for retargeting and advertising. So basically, let's start out very simply. So the broadcast tab is a way for you to reach users who have interacted with your bot. That's the very base level of what this does. It lets you send a message. Think of it like an email marketing program that you're using right now, such as MailChimp or Constant Contact. With that, it allows you to send out a message to all your users, right? So you can do the exact same thing here. And of course, as with any marketing, you can do more advanced segmentation too, and that's where user attributes come in. And again, more on that in a later video. But for now, let's say we want to send a very basic message to every single person who has interacted with our bot in the past. So to do that, we can simply go to this, press the plus button to deliver your message now. And what we can do is we can add a filter if we want. Again, this is more with user attributes, but say just for basics, if we wanted to only send this message to people with the first name Andrew, okay? So what we could do then is select the user attribute, which we talked about in the last video with AI. And so we can say if somebody's first name is Andrew. As you can see, it populates here because I already interacted with the bot. It'll populate a full list of people's names who have interacted with your bot previously. So we can say if the first name is Andrew, then we'll send a message. And of course, you can add more advanced filters. Again, more on this later. So we could exclude people who have certain names and that sort of stuff based on other attributes. So that's really where the advanced remarketing comes into play. But for now, let's send a super simple message, right? So it'll tell us one user matches this filter, which makes sense. I'm the only person who used the bot, but if there were more, it would just be me, assuming I was the only person with the name Andrew. And let's send a simple text message saying, "Hi." Very complex, I know. And let's use the typing plugin here to make things a little bit more advanced and show you how you can use this. You can use this slider to adjust for how many seconds you want this typing animation to display as if some real person were typing. So let's say 0.5 seconds, half a second. And then let's not send another message. Let's send an image of the pizza that we had earlier. So this is a very, very simple broadcast message. And the cool thing with broadcast messages too is that you can send these and they never actually exist in a block. So that's the cool part about it, that it's only sending to these specific people at one specific time. However, if you are sending these broadcast messages too, and you want to save the data, do know that as soon as you send a broadcast, it disappears. So unlike a block, the disadvantage here is that if you create some elaborate block, as soon as you send this broadcast, it'll disappear. Now, sequences are slightly different, but I'll talk about those in a little bit. So for now, let's just send this super basic broadcast message and hit send. So it says messages sent, and you can also schedule for later and so forth. So scheduling for later is where sequences will come in, and I'll talk about those in a second here. So here we should have just received the message. As you'll notice, sometimes it takes Chatfuel a minute for the servers to process the message and actually send it out, especially if you have a bot with a lot of users in the thousands, the tens of thousands, etc. It'll take a long time for that message to propagate. In some cases, I've known people who have had lots of users on their bot, and in fact, it crashes the Chatfuel servers. So obviously, bots, as you can tell, at least in Chatfuel's case, are still in the very early stages. But at any rate, here you see the message displayed, so it's very cool, the technology there and the filtering that you can use. So I promised I'd talk about sequences. Let's go there next. So sequences are really cool because these are like, if any of you are familiar with a Facebook pixel, it's a way to strategically retarget your audience using certain parameters. So I guess the better way to define it is like an email marketing sequence, right? So one day after a person subscribes, you send them this message. And then a couple days after that, you send them a different message, etc. So you can do the same thing here in Chatfuel. When you're building the sequence, you want to keep it on off, because if you turn it on, it'll send to any people who match the attributes that you define. But in the meantime, let's ignore that. Well, we'll keep it off, and we can build out this sequence. So I'll just build something super basic and say, we offer catering. Obviously, if you're a marketer, you want to do something way more elaborate, such as if somebody goes to your catering page or your catering block, but they don't actually submit an inquiry, you could retarget them like that, offering, for example, a discount code. But that aside, let's keep it super basic. So then let's add a filter here and say if well, right now we actually don't have a user attribute set up to trigger when somebody goes to the catering page, so I can't actually go into that right now. But what we could do is set up a user attribute, which I've talked about this in many of the past videos, and I'll show you how to do soon enough. But what you could do is set up a user attribute on your catering block so it triggers whenever a person goes to that block and it keeps track of them. So then we could filter if somebody matches the user attribute when they get to that catering page, and then we could add another filter and another user attribute on a page that triggers after they submit that inquiry. We could then target those specific people based on their behavior. So if somebody triggers the attribute that means they were on the catering page, but they didn't get to the user attribute where they submitted the inquiry, then we could strategically retarget them, again, giving them a discount or something like that. And again, the beauty with sequences is that they don't delete after they send. They're these permanent things until you turn them off. So no matter at what time people get to a page, as long as a user matches the attributes that you define with this filter, they will get that message. So that's the really cool thing with sequences. As far as schedule for later, that's essentially the same thing as deliver your message now, but the catch is that you can, of course, as the name implies, schedule it for a later time. So if you have a special for your restaurant on, Mondays, for example, what you could do is repeat. You could say work days, or actually repeat custom, and deselect all the other days but Monday. And now you'll see over here, if we wanted to, we could say 50% off all pizzas today only. So we could send a simple broadcast message like that. And so let's say we want it to trigger at 12 p.m. So noon in the user's time zone, and the special starts, say, at 1 o'clock. So we want to give people some advance notice of this special, and we send it out to anybody who accesses our bot, and we send it on Monday shortly beforehand. So how effective is that, right? Tailoring your message to the exact right people. So this is, again, the power of broadcasts. And auto post from external source I won't get into in this course, but basically that means that you can simply auto post from some server, from an RSS feed, etc. But again, that's way more advanced, and that's nothing that really you'll be using at this point in your bot creation. So this is a basic overview of the broadcast functionality of the bot. Again, I'll talk more about this when I get into user attributes at a later time, but for now, know that this is very powerful for remarketing your users of the bot based on their behavior.